Hello, Be Smart viewers. Welcome back to another engaging episode of Manager's Mantra, where we connect with industry leaders who are shaping the future of business management. Today, we have with us Mr. Gautam Dutta, the Chief Executive Officer, Revenue and Operations at PVR INOX Limited. Gautam has nearly 3 decades of diverse professional experience spanning cinema, advertising, and brand management. For more than 19 years, he has been an integral part of PVR, where his leadership has been pivotal in shaping the company's growth and establishing it as a benchmark in the entertainment industry. Before joining PVR, Gautam has been associated with leading agencies including Low Lentas, Saatchi and Saatchi, and Rediffusion DY&R. So, without waiting further, let's jump right into this insightful discussion. Very good afternoon, sir, and welcome to this new session of Manager's Mantra. So we would, we are really glad and we are really pleased that you took out some time for us and to participate in this interaction. Yeah, and I just hope that this will be a great learning session for the viewers.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So let's start discussing the questions. On LinkedIn, you often share candid reflections on leadership, accountability, and consistency at work. Now, if you had to sum up your own management mantra in one line, how would you do that?
So technically, first and foremost, you need to understand LinkedIn is an open platform where one can share his views, and you normally share a view with the point that you want validation or criticism to that point of view. So many a times when I've put in a point of view, I've often got a lot of criticism as well, or questions, or saying we agree or don't agree. And I always believe in life there is no mantra technically. There's nothing called a mantra, there's nothing called a rule, because rules are meant to be broken. But yeah, these are some anecdotes or from our experience. And my experience tells me that resilience is something which I really value. This is something that has paid huge dividends to me in my own personal life, uh, because when you're up there every day, and you're ready to face the music, a lot of learnings happen. Learnings happen through experience, being there, taking responsibility, taking charge. So I think the pivotal point is to get to that point every day and keep doing it consistently. So as long as you're consistent and you're resilient, I think a lot of learning, eventually God gives in, and gives you a lot of leeway to learn and then do well in life.
Wonderful, interesting. So, also in a recent post, you spoke about investing in people and building careers and not just filling roles. Now, what triggered that mindset of you and how has it shaped the way you lead teams at PVR INOX?
As I said, first of all, no mantras. Two, people are your biggest assets. And as long as you get the right person, I always believe that all of us are born entrepreneurs, all of us. It's just a switch of a mindset. So when I go home, I keep telling everyone that you should switch off lights and fans and ACs when we are not using it. And everybody understands that because it's all about cost saving, because it's your own money. Similarly, at work, if you can do the same thing. So, what is it? What does it tell you? It tells you to take ownership of what you do, and those things come through small things. And that really is the pivot point. When you treat people as entrepreneurs, when you sort of nurture them as leaders, I think you get the best out of people. There could definitely be scales at which a individual could rise to or may not be able to rise to. That's a different question completely. But the fact is, when you get people in a room and tell most of them to behave like entrepreneurs, I believe it gets the best out of each of the individual. It gets them to own and be responsible. And when it's like a wicket keeper, I keep giving this example. A wicket keeper knows that when the ball is kind of coming to him, he's the only man standing. There is no backup. He leaves the ball and it's gone, because he knows fully well in No game of cricket, there's ever a fielder behind a wicketkeeper. If leaders and individuals can work with that mindset, we currently work with this mindset of saying, oh, I'm just a trainee, I'm just a manager, I'm just a group head, I'm just a CEO. So it's someone else's responsibility. If I leave some, no problem, somebody else will take it. Or I am only supposed to do this. And I think if you put those resilience, consistency, and the fact that you have to behave like entrepreneurs, and how you cultivate that within through counseling, talking, telling them where they're going wrong, and it's not as if I know the answers. Actually, they themselves come with answers. It's just that we get a problem and we try to debate it and we talk as entrepreneurs. We do not talk as employees, and I think that's the big thing that we always keep thriving for.
Nice. That's nice, and I really like the connect how you connected this with cricket in a country where it is treated as a religion almost. So just moving on to advertising, marketing, and cinema. You often describe cinema as a very powerful storytelling canvas for brands, not just a media buy, of course. Now, how has your advertising background influenced the way you think about cinema advertising and marketing as well?
So first of all, I was blessed to be in advertising for about 19 odd years, and I've done a lot of work there. And actually, advertising and hence cinema advertising is not the way I look at it. Advertising just helped me to ask better questions. Advertising told me that while idea is important, execution is bigger. Advertising told me that how you have to respect uh, creative thinking and ideation and execution, which came through client servicing. So it had many sort of significant contribution to what I could do at PVR. One being the fact that because I understood the subject called advertising, I could go to brands, or I could cultivate a team that could go to brands and give them a brand relevant story of how cinema could dovetail into that story, into their goalpost. And I think that became very relevant, and that was very refreshing for brands to know that here's a media owners coming with a perspective of wanting to help the brand's journey. And now coming to cinema advertising, and it wasn't so tough because cinema advertising is actually very, very potent medium.
Yes.
Is one of the most
Yes.
impactful medium. It touches all your five
Of
senses.
course.
There is no other medium where you can get your food to be tasted. You don't have any other medium where you can have your fragrance sort of in the air. You don't have a medium where you could run an ad, but in the lobby you could have your product trials. So, and all of that coming together at the same point in time. So you could touch all five senses at one given point in time. And these are captive audience. No remote control, no forward buttons, all glued to the world's best audio visual system, best audio, best visual delight, captivity, dark, and then this whole thing of from the time that you enter the cinema to the time you exit, you can sort of bombard it with a comprehensive brand story and relevance. So where do you get this in any other medium? No other medium can deliver anywhere close to what a cinema can deliver. And I think as we could sort of narrate this USPs to brands, we got a fantastic result out of that.
So now, going into advertising, talking about brands from your vantage point, what do you think brands are still getting wrong about the cinema medium, and what would you advise CMOs who want to kind of unlock the full potential?
Actually, they aren't getting wrong about the cinema medium. We are a hugely endorsed cinema medium in the country. It's just the fact that perhaps the one thing that I would want to correct, or this is something that we have really been going and telling our agencies as well as our business partners, is that it's not only during blockbusters that consumers come. Consumers come every time for every film. There are only about 15 or 18 blockbuster films, and we get close to about 160 million people. Now that's a huge number for this year, the coming year. So the fact of the matter, where are these people coming from? They're coming, and one very interesting stat says if you cut 5 weeks or 5.5 weeks across 52 weeks, the admission at the cinema is largely the same. Which what does it show? It's not hence supported by only blockbusters. It is supported by continuous films coming, and each film contributing sizable amount to uh, the footfalls of a cinema. So it's a very perennial, very here to stay medium, and that's something. And the fact that cinema also gets a discerning audience. You need to understand a consumer coming into PVR is paying either $1 to $10 extra for a commodity product, but because the film doesn't change, we don't show a film with one extra scene or one extra song. The story, the film is the same. It's just that our experience is a lot better, our sound is better, our projection is better, our seating is better, and for that the consumer is willing to pay extra between $1 to $10. Now, you tell me, if we get 160 million people, and those are all discerning audience who are willing to pay extra for a better product, which brand manager today in the country does not want to talk to this guy? Because every brand believes, and rightly believes, that they are offering a better product.
So true, yeah.
And hence, this is the audience that everybody seems to be gunning after.
That's wonderful. So today we have seen how grand movies have been. We have witnessed the grand success of Dhurandhar 2 very recently, the huge opening, the anticipation from people. There have been movies like Jawan, Pathan, Bahubali, you just name it. So, but then, how is PVR Inox de-risking business when success depends hugely and heavily on a few big movies like this?
I answered your question. It's actually a misnomer. You've also come with the same thought that these 14, 15, 18 films drive the footfalls. If you calculate all these films, even if they were to get 1 crore footfall per film, would not total up to this much. The fact of the matter is the other films that do end up doing so, Jawan, Pathan, and maybe one or two more, that makes it only 4 films, 5 films. There are about, last this year there would be about 37 titles which have done 100 crore business. Now that is where the middle belly of the entire film business is doing brilliantly well, and hence the both the business is totally de-risked. It's these blockbusters will really take the momentum up, but it's not as if that others films don't do their part. So people are coming in just about every day to cinemas.
Sure. Let us, also talk about the common business challenges that you may have encountered and how you are dealing with it. So, you have worked across technology, consumer, hospitality, and now entertainment. Now, what is one common business challenge you have witnessed, and how do you see this cutting across all the categories today?
I think the one business challenge that I think every business today in the world is going through: am I relevant? How do you create relevance? And what is relevant today may not be relevant tomorrow. So, how do you keep reinventing relevance, understanding what the consumer wants, and not just giving what he wants, giving him more than what he wants? Because brands that create relevance are the ones who deliver great differentiation. Consumers may not take that differentiation, but will always salute you for giving a differentiated products. Brands which get satisfied but by seeing their current sales and say, hey, this is brilliant, and hence perhaps I can take the innovation a little more easier, fall off the line, because before you know, they are toppled over. So,
Yeah.
relevance and the speed at which you are reinventing yourself is very important. We've always heard of the four P's, but now the fifth and the sixth is passion and pace. Are brands able to depict passion, and are they able to reinvent themselves with a whole lot of pace? So that's really my take on this.
So now, you are talking about pace, you are talking about growth, you are talking about passion. So, when you meet other CEOs, other founders, then what worries do you hear repeatedly, whether it's growth or culture, talent, or and how do you personally approach these issues, kind of your own life, your own organization?
So different people, different stages of. One can't sort of bracket all problems into one. They largely, as I said, brands are, or CEOs would be worried about whether my brand stroke the category is being relevant, and do I need, how fast do I need to reinvent myself? That's number one. But there are brands which are doing exceedingly well, are fully accepted, but they have a leadership issues, because the founder seems to be getting involved with just about everything. So he has always, I've spoken to so many about saying, how do I build my second line? And which is what I spoke earlier of saying, uh, how do I get people to own my business as their business? How do I get them to think as entrepreneurs? So largely, I think, if you look at it, one is of course relevance through product differentiation, IT, the way it's moving. Uh, the second is all about the fact that, how do you sort of innovate with technology, with product, with design, and then largely the big bucket is people. How do I get a solid second in line? How do I get my people motivated? How do I get my people to be walking that line with me and sharing that load? I think broadly between the two, you would find 80% of the problems arising.
So, Gautam, we all know and we have all seen how the pandemic era has kind of accelerated the rise of OTTs, and we can't ignore the OTTs. Now, today, if we talk about today's situation, is OTT now more of a complementary window, you think, than a direct threat? And what do you see as the real competition then for you?
See, first of all, OTT is another platform to see movies. But if you ask consumers, not only me, because I could be biased, but we do massive research with consumers, they'll tell you that, you know there is no experience in OTT. There is a just a story, and with a lot of disturbance. A lot of people don't have that kind of space and the momentum. So half of the content is being watched on mobile phones and iPads,
Yeah.
which is hardly anything. There's no experience at all. So if you ask people, where would you ideally want to watch a film, 99.9% people will tell you at the cinema. A lot of them are not able to watch because of time, because of money, because of this, because of that, but they would grudgingly grant that to cinema, that that is the place to watch a film. Rest everything is a compromise. And earlier there was TV, then satellite, then DVD. It's yet another form. So it's not versus, it's and. We've always survived with another platform which showed content. Today it's OTT. But it's not a direct correlation, because you get content after 8 to 12 to 16 weeks on an OTT. Some of the bigger titles take much longer to hit the OTT. So people who want to watch, like if Dhurandhar 2 has been released, I've hardly met anyone who would say, I will wait for 12 weeks and then watch Dhurandhar. No way, nobody is willing to wait for that long. Everybody wants to watch today. The magic of watching it together, the communal, social watching experience, with the food, with the ambience, with this, as I said, the world's best audiovisual, where else would you get it? And all that coming to you at an ATP of 275 rupees. which is hardly anything. That's the ATP of PVR INOX. ATP stands for average ticket pricing, and that includes gold, lux, everything put
Yeah,
together
yeah,
at a
yeah.
blended level. That's the reported ATP for PVR, or in fact, a notch lower. So the fact is, it's not even on Tuesdays, as you will know, we run a much discounted scheme for people to come. So, that's one of the reasons why cinema not only thrives today, but would always continue to thrive.
True, very true. So, let us just talk about South versus Bollywood. Do you think there has been a cultural power shift? And, how does that influence PVR's allocation strategy, the screen allocation
We were
strategy of
always
PVR?
very gung ho about South because in South, not today, but for many decades, South has the capacity of watching far more movies
Yeah.
than North, West, and East and Central. Two, they consume five languages. They
Yes.
also consume Hindi. They
Yeah.
also consume English. They also consume Malayalam, Kannada, Telugu, and so the fact is, five languages, great propensity to sort of watch big movies. So PVR always took that call many years ago to sort of spread its wing much deeper in South and prioritize that region. Now coming to your part of saying, has South taken the lead? Not really. It's a creative process. Every filmmaker in this country wants and believes that he's making a cult film, a mega blockbuster film. Nobody makes a film to say, oh, by the way, I wanted to waste some 100 crore rupees. Nobody wants to do that. And it's a famous saying in our business. And on every Thursday, all films releasing on Friday are 500 crore films. Because you would want to believe. Would you not want to believe that today's podcast is going to get us a lot of views? You've not come all the way for this podcast thinking, oh, only a handful of people will watch it. You want to do your best. I want to do my best. So similarly, a filmmaker who's creatively inclined, who's exposed to one of the best audio visual mediums and stories, he wants to put a wonderful film up to the audience. Some work, some don't. At times, some of the South Indian films have done exceedingly well. But now look at Durandar. This year it's Ramayana, it's King, it's Spirit, it's Toxic, and the line just goes on. Love and War, it's just endless. With Hollywood also coming, because creative people get inspired when they
True.
see
Yeah.
great content. And you ask a creative person, can you do it? And even before, without blinking an eyelid, he'll say, I can also do it. So that's how the gradual, sometimes someone may come through as delivering better content, but look at Punjabi content. What production qualities, they've upped their game. Look at Malayalam storytelling, fantastic, out of the world. So every filmmaker in the country is wanting to up the game, and that's the wonderful part.
Sure, yeah. So Gautam, a large part of our audience will be the young workforce, the new and emerging leaders being crafted in B schools, and we have you with us today. So who better than you can talk about leadership? You have spoken about leadership a bit earlier in the conversation. Let us just take this ahead. So you have led large young teams in an industry that's evolving, and rather evolving at a huge pace, I would say. Now, how has your own leadership and management style evolved to stay, kind of relevant to the younger workforce?
I think keep it simple. Be their friend. Talk to them. The world and the working style is not about fixed formulas or mantras. You have to constantly uh, put a address the problem in the most logical and data centric way. Gone are the days when you can tell your workforce, do this because I believe so. If you can't explain it through numbers, If you can't explain it through logic, then you don't have an explanation. Then you sit back and listen to someone who has a better logic and a better number. So the moment you shed that weight of saying, I am your leader, I am your manager, hence I know better, that doesn't work. You have to collaborate and work with this force. You have to be, you have to work with a friend. You have to also encourage them because they're young. You have to constantly give them feedback and encourage them to do better. But I think as long as one can keep the conversation around logic and data centricity, I think one can easily tide over this.
So, talking, there is a lot of focus on Gen Z now, talking about the Gen Z. What do you think about their expectations from work beyond salary and flashy designations?
I think they need feedback. They need constant feedback and constant engagement. What they don't like is when their team leaders do not engage with them. That creates a huge vacuum because they want a feedback. They want to know whether they are on the right path or not. They want a pat on the back. If they haven't done something, they don't want criticism, but they want to be told how it could have been better. And then, most importantly, show and teach rather than just say, do it this way. Can you lead by example? Can you show them how it can be done? They will respect you a lot more. That's it.
I'm sure a lot of Gen Z watching you would now be searching for jobs in PVR. After this, this will really inspire and motivate them. Let us talk about career building, mentorship, and Gyan a bit. If in a 25-year-old professional listening to this wants to build a long, meaningful career in advertising, media, entertainment, what are the kind of non-negotiable habits you would ask them to cultivate?
It's not about being in media or automobile or
True.
technology. I
Yeah.
think we've spoken about it: resilience, humility, uh, wanting to learn. Keep your conversations as logical as possible, as data centric as possible. Uh, I think, and gone are the days when anyone is looking at building a career. So in cricket, as they say, one ball at a time, one day at a time.
Yeah.
Get to work and say, can I contribute meaningful today? Not only to the business, but to my own self. And being selfish is fantastic. So ask that question: have I only earned my salary, or have I nourished myself with better knowledge today? And as long as you are learning, even if you have a bad day at work, even if your assignment did not do well, it's a big thing. Because, where are you given that opportunity to make mistakes and learn? So, technically, look down one ball at a time, be resilient, be there, take feedback, be logical, be data centric. And I think whichever field you are in, whichever field, you will get there. And the motherhood of all, think like an entrepreneur. And I would want to end this on one thing. I went to my boss many years ago to say I want to be a group head. So he looked at me and said, "Okay, done, banja." I said, "What do you mean banja?" He said, "Yeah, behave like one. The day you start behaving like one and working like one, we'll promote you." We often say, first give me the change, give me more money, give me a designation change, then I will do. No, nobody stops you. So when I wasn't a CEO, I wanted to I started to behave like a CEO perhaps. Because I didn't have any formal education at all. I'm not even a graduate for that matter. So the fact is, but because I started to behave like one, people, God bless everyone, they saw that and said, okay, I think he's ready. Whereas we keep negotiating and demanding this out of our from our company, from our bosses. Whereas the simple thing is, you want to be the CEO? Okay, become one. Let's see how you would you sort of behave if you were the CEO. And the moment you put that pressure back on you, saying, okay, what stops me from behaving like one? What stops me from owning this place and say, I am the owner? Just that piece of letter that I'll give you that you're the owner? No, you can still be that, because we are eventually, that's the mindset. And that, I think, changes everything. Everything.
Interesting, very interesting. So, Gautam, how do you spot potential employees, somebody, who can perform exceedingly well, and what do you do differently with them?
As I said, this is toss of coin. Very easy for me to say that there is a process through which we can define. You talk and you just uh, you you share your feelings, and you get people to give answers on questions which he's not come prepared for. That's the trick. Because when you get him off the course, then the whole challenge for me always is to, can I put a question which is out of the course, which he's not come prepared with, and get him to talk. If the individual talks to me for about half an hour, 45 minutes, chances are, I wouldn't say 100%, but there's a good chance that I'll get to know whether this profile will fit into the, the job that I want him to do. And then, of course, the standard, as I said, the grooming bit of how do you sort of nurture him into the system.
So before we have just come to the end of the conversation, but before we wrap up, we just thought to ask you this: that if you have to leave our listeners with one management mantra, of course you said that there is no a set formula for success, but still, if there has to be one or two management mantras that have never failed you, something they can apply, say
Resilience,
from
I
tomorrow
think,
morning, what would that be?
largely resilience, taking ownership, being consistent, thinking, wanting to think like an entrepreneur. Bit of a cliche, difficult to do, but very important. When you raise your hand and say, I am the last man standing, and I'll do it. I may be whatever, but I can do it, and I should be able to do it. I will not play the politics of an organization. I will, and this is what we do if we were running a shop or a business, our own business. We'll never say this is HR's job, this is so and so. And one, if, okay, I remembered one. You can delegate work, but you cannot delegate responsibility. So if there's one mantra, and through that you get everything. You can delegate work, but you can't delegate responsibility.
True, very true. Thank you so much, Gautam. So with that, we come to the end of the conversation. Thank you once again for taking out your time, and I really hope that we can stay connected and have you with us once again in any of our future sessions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that's a wrap on this episode of Manager's Mantra. Thank you, Gautam, for sharing your insights on the business of entertainment and providing career suggestions for the management students. Be smart viewers, we hope you found this conversation helpful. Share your thoughts with us at bsmart.edit@bsml.in. Follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram for more such insightful and inspiring content. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing.